Right, so I thought I'd show you what I do with my waste acrylic paint water. So here's how it starts out, and I've been collecting that in this container here, which actually goes in this kind of sink thing that I bought there, but you can collect it in, just a bucket with a lid. It needs a lid if you're just going to be tipping it in occasionally, because depending on how long you keep it for, it does start to smell a bit. I mean, this is actually fine just now. You can see normally I've got 8 litres and this is about half that. So after that's been in there for a few weeks, and in the summer it can be a bit smelly, so I take it out and I clean it all up. So that's the acrylic sludgy paint water. Looks delightful, doesn't it? And after this process, twice that amount ends up looking like this. So that's it, with all the water filtered and then dried out, and it makes a tiny little amount. So that can be disposed of in a far safer and better way for the environment than tipping this into your sink and getting rid of it in the water system. That's why I say that, as little water as you can use as possible for cleaning your brushes is best, because then there's less to dispose of at the end afterwards. So I've got, this is my receptacle for the filtered water, and that's the lid for it, which I've attached a coffee filter jug thing, and this is the filter paper. You see I've cut a hole in that, so that just makes it easier. But you don't have to do it in this sizes. You could work out how to do smaller amounts a little at a time, but I just find it, because I've got that big sink thing, it's easier for me to do it in larger amounts. So that's the coffee filters there, just a pack of 100. It will last me a long time. And these are the chemicals that separate the paint from the water. So we have aluminium sulfate and calcium hydroxide. So that's why I've got gloves on and a face mask and glasses on. And the other things that I need, I've got my wooden spoon for stirring that just gets kept in this plastic bag when it's not in use, and my measuring spoon, and I never use these for anything else in the kitchen. So this just stays in the studio with me, and I've got a little stirring spoon here as well. And this is what we'll use to test the pH of the water before it gets filtered, to make sure it's neutral, which is in these middle zones here. And I've written myself notes. I'll add a link to the Golden Paint website that shows you how to do this and all the stuff that you need, but I found that I needed to adjust the mixture slightly to get the right pH, so I've written myself a note there. Now that is for the amount of 8 litres, so I'll half that amount today. So this is a jar of just a little bit of warm water that I will use to dissolve the aluminium sulfate in, because it's a bit more sort of crystallized and needs to be dissolved first. So it says on my notes half a tablespoon, sorry, which is a whole one of those. You can see this is a half tablespoon measure. So I'll do half of one of these. It doesn't have to be like super exact, because you can adjust it. I'll pop that into the warm water. Put the lid back on that. And I've got my stirring thing. Just going to mix that in. Not all of the pieces will get dissolved. I just want to get the most of it done. Okay, and then I just pour that into my wastewater. And give it a stir. And now it's time for the calcium hydroxide, which is basically lime. It's the sort of thing these things you get in garden centres for conditioning the soil to make them either more acidic or more alkali for your plants. But obviously lime is quite, you have to be careful with it, hence the gloves and the mask. It's not super scary. That's the hardest thing is trying to do it one-handed. There we go. So back to my measurements, and it says 1/4 to 1/2 tablespoon. So I've already done it. I'll have to half it again, so that'll be an 1/8. So I'm going to say that's probably, if it says 1/4 to 1/2, I'll probably just put that much in. You could probably be more accurate with better measuring spoons. So I'm going to pop that in and get my spoon again and give it a stir. I don't know if you can see that, but what starts to happen is this process called flocculation, and you can see that the paint particles are starting to clump together and separate from the rest of the water. So just let that do its thing for a wee bit. We can get a bit closer to see that. And you can see the line of water that's starting to settle down, and the water's being shown more there. Okay. So now that that's done, we'll go to our little testing universal indicator paper and tear off a little strip. And I'm just going to test the water with that. And what we're looking for is somewhere in the middle range there. So I like to get this sort of greeny, green colour. So I'd say, yeah, that's in the safe range. So we can get rid of that. And that's ready to go. So then it's just a case of, this is going to be harder to do with just one hand. And just start to put it through the filter. And the first few times that's going to go through quite easily because it's mostly water. And you can see down here, that's the filtered water, which will be safe to put down the toilet at the end. So this can take a wee while to go through. Put more when that goes through, put some more in, put some more in. When it gets down to the sludgy parts at the bottom, then it takes a bit longer to drain through because you get all the paint solids in there as well. But I just leave it, and every time I come past, if the water level's gone down, then I'll put a bit more in and a bit more in. and eventually I'll show you that later on, and how that's looking. Okay, so this is, I've probably got about done half of it. I've still not reached the paint sludge at the bottom yet, but that's half the water gone, and that's, you can see already, even though the water looks pretty clear, that's what's come out, been filtered out so far. And there is the clear filtered water at the bottom. Okay, so that's all of that water gone and filtered. That's the sludge of the paint left over, and eventually that'll dry to be less than that amount in there. And that is all the clean filtered water, which I will go now and flush down the toilet. So it seems quite a faff, but once you get used to it, it's really quite easy and not that much trouble at all. One of the other things I'm going to try, I see my dog's down here, is using this for very small amounts. I've just put some of this Catsan cat litter in, and when I've just finished using the water, just a small amount, then I can put it in there and it absorbs and the rest of the water evaporates. So I've only done that with one lot of water so far, so I don't know how effective this is going to be, but I'll keep trying that over time, and so that I can report back and tell you if that's any good. Obviously you get that clay clumping litter, that wouldn't be very good. You just end up with a great big mess, heavy block of, I don't know, clay. So I'm going to try this stuff and see if that works. Hope this has been useful for you.